Inside of today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys the best 10 gadgets in the game right now. With every single update, I like to keep you guys informed with the meta and which gadgets really help out certain brawlers within the game. So of course, before we jump into it, make sure you're using a create code. That'd be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's hop into it. So starting off with probably the best gadget in the game, and actually has been for such a long time, it is Pam's gadget Scrap Sucker. So as you guys probably know already, I grinded to get your mum for literally 6 hours straight every single day for about 4 or 5 days straight. So I know how to play Pam pretty perfectly right now, and Scrap Sucker was actually the main reason why I was able to even push Pam. Like Pam, you know, she's pretty decent, a lot of times underwhelming, but with Scrap Sucker you can just remove ammo from, of course, literally anyone, but it just allows you to win every single fight. So for the most part, I use Scrap Sucker either at long range to then stop pushing up once, then I get my super, and then I can stop being really aggro, or if like especially like an aggro or just anyone in general is literally up in your face, you can pop that gadget, of course remove all their ammo, and Pam can actually shred when up close. She actually does quite surprising amount of damage. So Scrap Sucker just really allows her to push up and actually change a gunfight in her favor. So it has to be one of the best gadgets in the game. So moving into the next gadget, which I actually think has to be one of the best in the game quite easily, it is Sam's gadget Magnetic Field. So not only does he have one of the best star powers in the game, he has a really strong gadget. So whenever an opponent is in and around his super, it will pull them to the center of his super. But the reason why it's strong is because, of course, it's like a stun. But not only that, it will just pull people obviously close to your super, and then you can collect your super and then deal even more damage with your super again. So it just leads to a lot of damage, and also just cancellation features are always really strong. And a lot of the times, you know, you can also cancel their supers as well with this gadget. So I just think it's really polarizing. A lot of times you've got to be really careful because, well, literally every single Sam will use this gadget. So you've got to stay away from a super a lot of the time, or else he can assassinate you quite quickly. So moving on to another gadget which is really strong and really polarizing within the meta, we have Power Shield. So within competitive, a lot of the time you actually like to use the other gadget, but on ladder in specific, this gadget is extremely broken. I absolutely love it on Surge. Again, I'm starting to push Surge a little bit, so this gadget just really helps me in literally every single interaction. When I know I'm going to be close to a gunfight, or if anyone's going to give me a little bit of damage, I pop the shield. It gives me an additional 2 ammo, and then you can also use it to actually tank those really high damage type of supers or just shots as well. So like it'd be 3k for example, or a dynamite super, pop this gadget and it'll literally protect you near enough fully from it. So this gadget is literally game changing with Surge. Moving on to another really strong gadget, it's pretty boring because this Squeak gadget has been one of the best in the game for such a long time. We have Residue. So I think last time I actually didn't put it in the list because Squeak seemed to go down within the meta, but for some reason in competitive I still see Squeak quite a fair bit. Not too sure why. For me, it's still pretty underwhelming, but Residue anyways is one of the best gadgets in the game. You can just block an area for 10 seconds. It just gives you control quickly at the beginning of the game. Of course, once this gadget goes start running out, Squeak gets a lot worse because he's not the best in those 1v1s, but the gadget just can be so polarizing. It can just force enemies into an uncomfortable position, and that's why it has to be one of the best gadgets in the game. So next up we have another really strong gadget, which is Sandy's gadget called Sweet Dreams. So because Sandy's became a lot more meta now, you're starting to again feel the the strength of this gadget. Basically, this gadget has always been one of the best in the game. Of course, when a brawler's not too relevant, I don't really tend to highlight their gadget too much. But with Sandy, it's definitely the case that this gadget is so strong. It can save him a lot of the times, you know, when there's a really aggressive brawler, because of course that's probably what counters him the most. You know, brawlers like Rosa, Buzz, Primo. At least the gadget gives you a little bit of breathing space. It will stun them for 1 second, but it can also interrupt a lot of different supers. But especially it's so polarizing in Brawl because before you're about to shoot, make sure you've got your gadget popped, and then you can shoot, and then of course shoot the enemies, and they're going to be stunned and they can't save it every single time. So this trick's been known for a long time, but that's one of the main reasons why it's so strong, because there's literally no counterplay to it. So moving on to another really strong gadget in the game, we have Penny's gadget Salty Barrels. So you probably already know how strong this gadget is already. It's pretty much in my top 10 every single time, but it's hard not to put it in because with Penny, you basically save from a lot of aggro brawlers with this gadget. A lot of times, like especially, you know, if I'm personally going up against Penny, I know I can't go up close because she's got that gadget to hand. And if you go up close, you're probably going to be dealt like 3k at least with one shot, 2k. It's going to be pretty dangerous for you to push a Penny with gadgets. So a lot of times you can only really counter Penny when she's run out of those gadgets. So of course, any aggro brawler, you know, it's not going to literally like one shot them a lot of the times, but it will give you a little bit of a safety cushion with this gadget. You can also use it to block a lot of high HP, high damage shots, you know, like B shots, Piper shots. You can also use it in that sense as well. So the gadget's got a lot of versatility, and it easily has to be one of the best in the game. And on to another really strong gadget, which is always going to be one of the best gadgets in the game. It is Flying Hook. So for the longest time, this gadget's been so strong. The main reason why it's so good is because he's so good at capitalizing on his biggest, his best matchups. So for example, Cole's really strong against throwers or just really squishy brawlers. So, if you're super in on if you're gadgeting on a brawler and then you're close to super, you're just going to destroy him every single time. Or it's just really good for those quick, flashy plays, but also to get some good control, on maps with a lot of water, like Canal Grande, for example. It can help you get a first star pretty easily. So this gadget is easily one of the best in the game, and I don't know how you go about not countering it, nerfing it, because it's been one of the best in a long time, and I just don't see it actually ever getting nerfed. So you're always going to get value out of this gadget. So next up, we're moving on to another really polarizing gadget. We have Sugar Rush with Bonnie. So Bonnie has always been pretty strong in certain game modes, and this is the main reason why with this gadget. So Sugar Rush will increase your movement speed and your reload speed by 30%, which is really good, especially on certain maps where you want to get a little bit of pressure. It can really help get a lot of damage onto the field. Bonnie has a high amount of HP, so giving her an increased reload speed and movement speed is really strong, because her biggest weakness, of course, is the fact that she can't actually move so fast, so people can easily pick a target on her. But once she pops that gadget, a lot of times she just gets so much pressure, and for me it is a must-have with Bonnie. So next up, we're moving on to Gray's gadget called Walking Cane. So this gadget's always been pretty underrated. Even though Gray's not the strongest in the meta, this gadget definitely helps him in those 1v1. So I thought when the update dropped, you actually couldn't use this gadget for an unbreakable wall, but you can as long as you're at max distance. But not only that, of course, it can still break through normal walls. There's still a lot of maps where this gadget will get so much value with it, and of course, if they're below a certain threshold, you can easily 2-tap certain brawlers. So that's why this gadget is so good, and you can also use it to interrupt certain things. Any gadget that has kind of like a stun or a cancellation feature is really strong, but this one really helps Gray to become quite a good assassin. And finally, moving on to the last gadget, which I think you definitely need within the game, it is Lou's gadget, Syro Syrup. So again, Lou is on the list. He's got a really good gadget, star power, and just really strong in the meta. But this gadget, it's one of the main reasons why you combine this with his supercharging gear. You can just infinitely freeze people. It's so strong, especially if they're already about 50% frozen. Of course, you're going to instantly freeze them, and then let's use 2 pieces of ammo to then cycle another super. It just creates a really toxic cycle, and a lot of times it can be so overwhelming for the opponents to deal with. And of course, they will be reduced in damage when you literally throw the super on them because of your stop powers. So for me, this gadget is a must-have, and it can be completely game-changing. Alright guys, it's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what gadgets you think are really strong within this meta. Still, same old gadgets are pretty strong. That's why I don't really like doing these videos normally, but you guys seem to really enjoy them, especially when the updates drop. But the same type of gadgets are pretty strong. There's nothing really changed, but hopefully in the next update they'll start to balance a lot of the gadgets and a lot of the star powers, because there's a lot of really underwhelming ones and a lot of really strong ones. So that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.